Maui's over. It's time for a debrief meeting.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Friday, November 29th, 2024. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade, joined today by our good friend, Coach Bill Robinson, the head coach of the Milligan University Buffaloes basketball team, and a 2-decade veteran of Carolina basketball school, bringing us all of that wealth of knowledge. It's great to be together. You're joining us at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us your first listener watch on this Black Friday. Hopefully you are not out being silly shopping because you can do it all online now. There's no need, folks. It's a new age. Lean into it. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Want to welcome in all the everydayers, the Locked On Tar Heels insiders, and of course the Locked On Tar Heels Discord community. Let's get after it. Coach, we record this actually on Thanksgiving Day. It's good to be together. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Good stuff. Good to be able to take time together as we're given some moments of thankfulness, and we'll revisit that at the end of the show. Coming up today, what we're going to do is, as we record on Thursday, we're in the immediate aftermath of Maui. And so we're going to talk about the takeaways from Maui. Level of concern. Should we have any changes to the starting lineup or the rotation, adjustments ahead of Alabama? And then I'm going to ask Coach as we get later in the show for 2 areas of encouragement coming out of Maui and 2 areas of concern coming out of Maui. And Coach, ultimately, you know what I realized? I'm wearing my lei that I actually got in Maui this summer. I forgot to wear it all week long. It's my fault that the Tar Heels went 1-2. I jinxed us. And so I'm going to just take all that blame on my able-bodied shoulders. So I think that's the deal, right?
Absolutely. I wish you told me you're going to wear yours. I got one downstairs since we're taping that today that we got Hawaii a couple years ago. It was kind of crazy. We got ready to play the first game over there, and the head coach from the other team just came and gave me one right before the game. So that was pretty awesome. And I only wore it during the game. I haven't worn it since, but a really cool piece of memorabilia.
That's really, and what a show of sportsmanship, man. I just love stuff like that. I love that. Okay, well, we go from those happy thoughts to just like, all right, Carolina just went 1-2 in Maui, 2-2 overall in Hawaii with winning at Hawaii on Friday night. And so, Coach, I just, I'm going to ask you for specific 2 things of concern later on, but just at a general level right now, maybe at a scale of 1 to 10, the Tar Heels are 4-3. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is your meter right now?
It's probably a 7. So I'm a little bit more nervous than I was before. Obviously, didn't play the way Carolina was hoping to play. They did play some great competition, as UConn found out, going 0-3.
Hey, we could be UConn. It could be worse.
Yeah, could be worse. But I think we did find out how good Auburn is and how good Dayton was. I mean, everybody looked at Dayton as kind of that, they're not very good. We should beat them. And then they go on and beat UConn like a drum last night. So let's be honest. We didn't play great. It was very good competition, but there is some level of concern right now. We've got to get some things figured out.
Yeah, man, congrats. Dayton is I'm so impressed by them, so impressed by Auburn, all of that. And so, Coach, I think I mentioned this on yesterday's show. There was all this conversation ahead of the Michigan State game. And I think part of it is that Coach Davis had switched his starting lineup in the second half of the Auburn game and went with Van Allen Lubin. So there's a bunch of conversation around that about, hey, Drake Powell's really coming on now. Is it time to make some change to the starting lineup? And I'm curious, now with a week ahead of the Alabama game, lots of time to get some things figured out. Would you make a starting lineup change if you were the head coach of the Tar Heels right now?
Yeah, it's time. It's definitely time. The way they started each game I think is obviously very concerning. So there's got to be something different, whether it's a change in the lineup, whether it's a change in the pregame meal, whether it's change to, how you start the warmups. I know warmups for me has been something I've always let my guys do. I want them to have ownership. I feel like they have got a voice. So we've always let them do warmups. But right now, I think if we're starting the way it is, maybe we change that up. Maybe we talk to strength coach, Jonas over there, and think, hey, there's something going on, maybe physically. Maybe we try to do something more mentally. But there are definitely some big changes. Easy one is just to change the starting lineup.
I think that's like clear and obvious. And I love that. Like, let's change what we're eating, something. Just try something to shock the system at this point, because it is too much of a thing to not mess with it. And Coach, do you have specifics of what you would do with that change in terms of the starting lineup personnel?
Yeah, and we've talked about toughness before. I think Lubin just brings a totally different mindset, and I would love to insert him there. Maybe the intensity, the toughness that we are missing, maybe that's something we get from him. Again, I've talked so much about Drake Powell, and he's my favorite player on this team right now. He just brings the energy at both ends of the floor. He's unselfish. He shares the basketball. He makes great decisions. He can guard anybody on the floor. I think it's probably time to put him in the starting lineup and just let him go. I don't think we need to run anything for him. I don't think we need to do anything special. But he's the guy. Just put him on the floor and just let him touch the ball. Let him guard the other team's best player, regardless of what position he's at, and just let him go. Just let him run. Let the horses run.
And I mean, think of everything else he does, and then he goes 4 of 6 from 3 against Michigan State. You're not going to get that every night, but if Drake Powell's doing that on top of everything else he does, Coach, I mean, that's insane. So along with Drake and Van Allen, would you keep the 3G of Elliot, RJ, and Seth the same, or would you make any switches there?
No, I mean, those are your best 3 players, but your production wise, you just let them be. Just let them go. I think there's still stuff you can talk about from the defensive perspective, about just staying in front of the ball better, to be able to hate to give up a bucket. That's the thing. My guys hear me say that all the time. We just don't seem like the Tar Heels hate to give up a bucket. It doesn't bother them. They're just worried about getting the ball and going to the other end. You've got to get to the point where you just hate to give up buckets. You're just not going to give up any easy baskets, and we're just not going to give up any second shots. So those are the things I think we emphasize. Make a little tweak to it, but you got to keep those 3 guys on the floor.
I love that phrase, Coach. I'm filing that away. Hate to give up a bucket. That's now part of my vernacular. Okay, as you think about the tournament Carolina just played, plus the Hawaii game, I'm curious. I talked about this, but it was really speculation, and you're going to be able to speak to it directly. How much of a factor is fatigue in this 3 games in 3 day scenario and 4 games in 6 days if you add in the Hawaii, knowing, that Carolina relied on its horses a good bit throughout that stretch?
I'll be honest, if it's you and me playing, it's going to be a major factor because we're old. But for these young guys, it shouldn't bother them. They grew up in an AAU culture where you're playing multiple games in a day. So I don't really, I mean, I understand if it was been the first day over there and you're still dealing with some of that jet lag stuff, but the Hawaii game should have got all that stuff out. We don't need any excuses. Those guys just need to be ready to play. So I don't blame the slow starts on the travel, because the other teams had to do the exact same thing too. So let's just say what it is. We've got to play better, and when the lights come on, you just got to be ready to go, regardless of what what the physical conditions can be. You just got to forget about it and go play.
Okay, yeah, sheesh, that's tough to reckon with, man. So as you think about adjustments, and I know we're going to get to the 2 areas of encouragement, 2 areas of concern, but outside of those, if you were Hubert Davis, we just talked about the starting lineup. Are there any other like specific adjustments you would put in or make ahead of the Alabama game this week?
Yeah, if I'm Coach Davis on the way home with the long plane ride, I'm not gonna be able to sleep. I'm on the text with that group chat with my coaching staff saying, hey, let's throw some ideas out here. Here's what I'm thinking. Try to get some feedback. Almost have a coaches meeting on the plane via text, so nobody really knows what's going on. But one of the things I've always talked about is the fishing analogy. If I go to my favorite fishing spot with my favorite bait and I know there's fish there, we're going to find success. What happens when we don't? We either need to change bait, change the lineup. That's kind of what we're talking about. Maybe add a different addition, or we need to change spots. Maybe we look at zone, maybe look at pressing, maybe look at trapping a little bit. So it's that whole fishing idea where, okay, we've done this for so long, we've had so much success. Now all of a sudden we don't have success. Maybe it's time to change spots. So I would like to see, and in his post-game, interview, he talked a little bit about that. Maybe we need to do what we do, but better, or maybe we need to start looking at some different other options. I think everything's on the table right now, and that's what that coaching staff's there for, to give them options, to be able to talk. Hey, this is what I think, and then Hubert's got to go ahead and make that decision. But if it was me and I'm in that situation right now, I'm suggesting, hey, let's go small, let's go faster than even we played, but let's go faster to the defensive end. They're going as fast as they can at the offensive end. Offense is not the problem.
No.
It's got to be the defense. So how do you speed that up? That's up to them to figure that out.
And it's so, we're having this debrief where we're like, man, things feel not great because you went 1-2. Like, it's crazy how different things would feel, Coach. Like, let's say that Elliot Cadeau wide open layup drops and then Carolina is able to stop Michigan State on the other end. Like, those two small things, just inches differently, we're probably having a whole completely different conversation. And it's wild how that balance is such a razor's edge, Coach. Like, that's got to be tough to live with.
Yeah, we missed 20 free throws the other night in the game and lost in overtime. The kid makes one more free throw. We feel good on the way home. It's just that one play. And that's the reality is that, Michigan State made bigger plays in overtime than we just didn't make the plays. So at the same time, it's not, panic mode. Still really, really good. We played really well. I mean, competed against great teams and fought. And that's the thing I love, the fact that they just continued to fight and fight back when they got down. Just can't get down. And the same way when you get to league. The reality is we're still 0-0 in league. I saw something posted about UConn being 4-3, and they're listed way down at the bottom when they list their conference standings. But the conference standings, everybody's 0-0. So it doesn't really matter. We got to look forward to what's coming.
And again, the context of who Carolina's 3 losses are against. At Kansas, against Auburn, who are, in my opinion, the top 2 teams in the nation right now. I'm not talking long-term ceiling. And then a Michigan State team that I think is a lot better than people are giving credit for. And so it's just like that context matters, I think, when you talk about who those wins and losses are too. But got to go do it on the court, and it's a long journey, and we will get there. So, Coach, I want to ask you, we've kind of been raining on the parade a little bit right now. Let's bring out a little sunshine. I want to ask you, hey, what are your 2 areas of encouragement coming out of the Maui Invitational? We'll get to that in just a second. Right after I tell you about game time, man, college basketball season is here. There's nothing better than the atmosphere of the Lahaina Civic Center or some of these major events. Man, it's going to be crazy in the Smith Center this Wednesday as Carolina hosts Alabama. It's going to be a great moment. The anticipation of what's going to happen, trying to get that revenge that Carolina needs, all of this. And Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through everything else. And it's not just for basketball, man. You can get these tickets for concerts, comedy theater, and more. So whether it's Game Time ticket coverage, the lowest price guarantee, or the panoramic views from your seat right there in the app, Game Time's got you covered. I'm telling you, man, these prices for the Bama game, they just keep falling. It's now down under $40. You can get in the door. I've seen them as low as $38 on Game Time, man. Go check out and get some tickets for this game. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? It's game time. We carry on with our debrief meeting from the Maui Invitational, where Carolina starts by beating Dayton and then falling to Auburn and Michigan State. And Coach, we're going to look at both sides of the coin. We're going to start with the glass half full side of the coin. I want to ask you to give us 2 things that you're encouraged by coming out of the Maui Invitational. Why don't you hit us with those?
The first one would be depth. We're seeing that they're playing the bench the way everybody's been wanting Coach Davis to play. 8, 9 guys. We see the fact that the speed of the game is, especially, the way Elliot catches an outlet and pitches it ahead. We know how fast he is from end to end with the dribble, but to be able to pitch it ahead even faster than he could dribble it. That's what I've been really impressed with. I love to see the pace. They had one last night after made bucket, outlet, pitch ahead, and one at the other end. It was 3 seconds and they were laying it in. And that's something they practice. We've seen the videos of them in practice with the transition drills, pitching it ahead, scoring, getting it out of the basket quickly, pitching it ahead. So to see the depth and to see the speed that they're playing with right now. That's my first one. The second one is to see the continued development of Seth Trimble.
Mm.
We thought, okay, so he made a few jump shots early. He scored 33 without, RJ around. Can that last? Is it sustainable? Can we see this over a consistent long period of time? And I think it's real. I really do. I think he's made that jump. I think he's prepared himself for the big stage for him to take a bigger role. And I think that's super encouraging to see. Now you got a guy who can absolutely just kill people on the offensive end, but he's also just an absolute dog on the defensive end. And that's what you want as a coach. You want somebody who can play at both ends.
And we saw that another example on another team was Janai Broom, man. He is devastating on both sides of the court for Auburn. And that's what I love is like, we've got that different position, but in Seth Trimble, man, who can really do it. I want to, let's stick with Seth and then we'll go back to the transition stuff you were talking about there. One of the things I love with Seth is his ability to guard multiple sizes despite, being 6'3". For example, I saw there was a moment last night where I think it was Elliot got switched off onto one of Michigan State's bigs. And when they had a moment to create switches back to get a better matchup as the ball was when they were on the weak side, Seth was the one that switched with Elliot to get on the big. I forget the bigs that were actually in the game at that moment for Carolina, but Elliot and Seth found each other and it was like, okay, Seth is this 6'3" dude who's going to take on Michigan State's big. And it's those kind of things where I'm like, he's not going to back down from any fight, coach. And I love that in him.
Yeah, no, you talk about the athleticism, you talk about his quickness and all. He's strong. I mean, he's physically strong too. So those big guys try to, bury him in the post. He can fight back. He can put a forearm in somebody and dig his heels in, and he's just not going to give up the space that a normal guard would do. And that's why you can play him at the 3, regardless of what some of the other teams are playing, if they do have a big lineup, because he can guard multiple positions.
And coach, we had that end of regulation moment where you're thinking, all right, this is probably going to be a 3 for RJ or maybe Drake since he's been reining it in. It's Seth Trimble. That's the one taking an end of game tying attempted 3 and fading away to the right as he does so. So from that, what does that say to you about Carolina's? Obviously we don't know the play call and if what option number he was in that play, but the fact that he's the one taking it, that he's confident enough to take it, and that his teammates are confident enough in him to take it as well. What does that say to you?
Yeah, they ran a little hammer action and tried to get RJ back in that opposite corner off the, on that baseline skip, but they jumped it, and obviously they're not going to let the best player. And the screen actually for Seth was not very good. But just the action because of the action, the way it was, and it was more of a misdirection back to it was wide. It wasn't even that wide open. It was wide open enough for him to at least get a shot off. But to have him be option 2, I think shows how much he's improved and how much trust that coaching staff has in him now. So to me, that's a huge moment for him to be able to make that shot and to be able to have the camera. We could see Coach Williams react even better. I love that because you see him hit that 3 and Coach Williams get excited. Boy, that just made it even more special for me last night.
It was so fun to watch he and Wanda just sitting there on the baseline the whole tournament, man. I love them just soaking it up. It's so great. But you're right. Folks, if you didn't go back and watch that last play. The pick action for Seth up top is not great, but he relocated almost the way when a play breaks down in football and the receivers have to find a way to get open in the end zone as Mahomes is scrambling or whatever you want to say. And he relocated back to the wing, made himself available to Elliot. Elliot found him, boom. And so that's really encouraging. Coach, getting back to your first encouraging thing is I feel like Carolina has been doing such a good job with those pitch aheads. When they're getting out and running in transition, I feel like the guys are being wise about not being me having to hold on to the ball. They're pitching ahead to the obvious open guy, and it's they're not finishing every transition opportunity, but they're finishing a lot of them. And I think some of it is because they're doing a good job of finding the right guy in the right space.
The term we use is uncomfortably fast. We want to play at a pace that's uncomfortably fast for the opposing team, not necessarily for us, but it takes organization. It takes commitment to being in shape. It takes an intensity that when you do give up a bucket or you do get an outlet quickly, it's you're already thinking about the next play. It's shortstop mentality. In baseball, you're always thinking about where the ball is going to go before it is hit to you. And that's what Elliot, I think, does a great job. He already knows where it's going, and you can see it's very designed. Whether it's a pitch ahead or a skip across, he knows exactly where he wants to throw that ball even before he gets it. So that's the thing I love. It's organized. It's chaos for a team that scores a bucket, and it has to be sprinting back with an eye on the basketball all the time because you know what, they're going to run it right down your throat.
And it's so nice with Elliot because he's got that vision and pitch ahead ability, but he's got the athleticism, obviously multiple steps ahead of like Kendall Marshall to be able to get. I mean, I feel like he was getting to the basket at will against Michigan State, using that kind of step through cross, Euro step, kind of bring the ball over the top and get right to the front of the rim. And just really impressive. That's obviously a journey that still has to be refined this season. And we're going to continue to watch for it. So, Coach, those are your two areas of encouragement coming away from Maui. Let's flip to the other side. Let's turn that glass over and make it half empty. Please, no water spill out of this bottle when I turn it upside down. And we'll see what those areas of concern are. And, that'll kind of wrap up our Black Friday show. So we'll get to all of that coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book because right now, new customers can bet $5, and if that bet wins, you get $150 in bonus bets. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So maybe you get a hunch in the middle of the game. Well, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Right now, ACC regular season champion odds. Duke is the favorite at -125. Carolina second at +290. Those odds have widened dramatically. Clemson third at +1,500. And then Wake Forest and Pitt tied at +2,000. If you want to get in on that, visit it at FanDuel.com today. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Coach, I've called you here for this debrief meeting today so we can figure out what the takeaways are after the Maui Invitational. We've looked at some big picture things. We've looked at two areas of encouragement, and now we want to kind of wrap up with two areas of concern for you. You placed your overall concern at a 7, if I remember correct. Yes, 7. And so now I want to ask you to dig in on the specifics of it. What are two key things that are areas of concern coming out of Maui?
My job with my team is to try to make us better. So where my assistants kind of focus on the opponents and who we're playing next, I'm really focused on us, trying to figure out how we can get better. If I look at this Tar Heel team right now, my biggest concern is the defensive rebounding and the rebounding overall. It's been something that Carolina has been famous for, to be able to dominate the glass, especially the offensive glass, unlike anybody else. To be out rebounded consistently over this last week it's something I'm very, very concerned about. Obviously, we don't have that big post player, and maybe that's part of this whole equation. The reality is, and I've seen a lot of post social media about it, we're not getting anybody at the post right now. So we got to stop talking about, I wish we had, I wish we had, I wish we had. Because as coaches, we always do that. Oh, if we just had this other kid, but we can't talk about it anymore. We got to think about, so what do we have now and what can we do to fix what we have now? Coach Williams never did any rebounding drills. They would just emphasize watching guys box out. If they didn't box out, they ran. You're out, run, next guy in. We do a lot of rebounding drills because we still want to get back to the fundamentals of it. And they're different. We do 5 different ones, but we're constantly trying to work on little things like that. I'm not saying it's time to do that, but I think it's time to have that one assistant coach in practice that's sitting there watching the rebounding only. That's the only thing they do. And if somebody misses it, call them out. Whatever punishment you want to get, whether it's just, hey, fix this, or whether it's an out and run or out and on the treadmill or whatever they do, when it comes time to punishment. But that's the number one thing right now that I'm concerned about is that obviously the post play, the lack of having that rebounding. That's the biggest one for me.
And as you look at the rebounding numbers in totality, Coach, I think there was this a little bit of a belief, at least for me, out of the gate. Carolina out-rebounded each of their first 3 opponents, including Kansas. And so it was like, okay, maybe things are going okay. But since then, Coach, in the last 4 games, so all 4 games on the Hawaii trip, Carolina was -13 against Hawaii, +2 against Dayton, -6 against Auburn, -8 against Michigan State. So the Tar Heels have been out-rebounded 3 of the last 4 games and have allowed double-digit offensive rebounds to 5 of their 7 opponents. So got to finish these possessions. Just to put some stats on what you're saying there, that is bearing out what you are seeing. So I share that concern, and it's got to get figured out. I love that. I don't love it, but I love you pointing it out. What's the second area of concern?
I've got a couple A, B, and C ones that are minor ones, but I'm concerned a little bit about RJ not being able to get good shots. I'm a little worried about Cade Tyson, maybe a little bit more than worried about him and his ability to make shots. But my second one, the biggest concern, would be the lack of defensive intensity.
Yeah.
Maybe the consistency of it, because it's there, but it's not there until we're down double figures. And Coach Williams used to talk about sense of urgency, and that was one of his big things. Can you shoot? Can you stay in front of the ball? Can you play with a sense of urgency? And you've got to be able to play as soon as that ball is thrown up. That urgency's got to be, there immediately. And it just seems like it's been very evident, at least the games in Hawaii, just very evident that urgency was not there from the tip.
How do we figure that out, Coach? Because the ability is clearly there, because there are times when it's happening when they get that sense of urgency. And you think about some of the individual defenders on this team, like Seth, like Drake Powell. Elliot, I feel like, has taken a big step forward in defensive capability and intensity this year. What do you have to, like, in your opinion, what's got to be flipped mentally? Because again, physically, it's clearly a possibility. So what is the mental shift that allows it to happen? Do you just say, all right, guys, hey, I know we're tipping off, but we're already down 30 points and it's the second half. Act like that. Like, what do you do?
Yeah, that doesn't work because the scoreboard's still up there and they see 0-0. But I do think personnel is a great way to do it. The other way to do it is to sit them down if they're not. If that guy gets blown by early on or just acts like, the problem is the guys that, again, the guys are having problems with that are the guys you need on the offensive end. So we've got to be able to find a way for those guys, and maybe it is a little pep talk right before taking the floor. Maybe it's somebody like Marcus Page getting into Elliot's head right as they're walking out on the floor and said, hey, man, I know you're going to do this offensively. Sit down and guard somebody. You can't give up a bucket. Obviously, we talk about Michael Jordan, the GOAT, the greatest of all time, but he always, first possession of the game, made sure his man didn't touch the basketball. His man wasn't going to score, and it's a team game. We obviously know that, but there's something about me not letting my guy score first possession sets the tone for the rest of the game. And maybe there's something like that we just say, hey, I'm just not going to let my guy score. We got to get a stop that first possession. Everybody locked in. We got to get a stop, set the tone right away.
Yeah, because I love the Jordan analogy, because you think about with him, everyone thinks about his scoring and his offense and all that. How many Defensive Player of the Year awards did that dude win in the NBA? Like, that is the level of competitor you got to be. I love going back to that phrase you used earlier about hating to give up a bucket, man. That's just ringing in my head right now coming off of it. All right, Coach, I love both of those points. Very well laid out for us and helpful to be able to think about ahead of what's coming up next Wednesday as the Tar Heels host Alabama in their last elite non-conference battle. Obviously, you got Florida and UCLA, who are good, but man, this is the last one of that magnitude. Coach, I do want to get us out on some kind of better thoughts note. It is Thanksgiving Day as we record. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see Coach is wearing his Montross quarter zip from Montross camp. And Coach, I had some thoughts of thankfulness that I shared on the actual Thanksgiving Day show on Thursday. But man, you wearing that just seems very appropriate to mention Big Eric and our thoughts with him. Just wondered if you had anything you wanted to say to that end.
Yeah, I'm obviously super thankful for my wife, my family, my kids, my team, the opportunity I have to be able to coach. But I'm also thankful for the opportunity to be part of this Carolina family, to be around people like Eric and Laura and the family, and to know that $1 of every book that I sell is going to go back to the Montross camp and to their dedication to the Children's Hospital in Chapel Hill. But I've been very, very fortunate, very thankful just to be, even though it's just a small part, being part of camp, but being able to be part of that Tar Heel family means an awful lot to me.
That's well said, man. I know it's thankfulness is something we should be taking stock of all the moments of our lives, but I just love this intentional time of the year to be able to stop and do that. And Coach, I'm very thankful for you sharing those things, man. I want to say, because I think about this a lot, how thankful I am to you and for the relationship we get to share digitally doing this together. But man, just being connected back to you and just it means a lot to me. And I want to express that to you very publicly in front of everyone. So thank you.
Feel the same way. I do.
Man, I love it. And again, that's part of what this is all about, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. I Coach just mentioned his book. I want to make sure to mention that as well. Carolina Basketball School, History, Stories, and Drills. If you don't have this thing, man, it is the great time of year to get it. For a loved one, or we always joke and say a Duke fan or an NC State fan in your life, to give them for Christmas. As Coach said, every book that sold $1 that goes to help. And so, man, it's a great thing. It's a great book with all sorts of great stories. You will be blessed to be able to read it, and it'll give you an even deeper love and appreciation for the Carolina family. If you haven't subscribed to Locked On Tar Heels on YouTube and on audio, make sure you do that so you don't miss a second of the show. You'll also help us to get 10,000 YouTube subscribers in the first 3 years of the show. We are so close, and I want to ask you to be part of that journey if you've not subscribed already. So easy to do. Boink, just hit subscribe right there. If you've not joined the Locked On Tar Heels Insiders or the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, man, that link is in the show notes. A great way to go even deeper with the show and to help support what we're doing as we grow all together this big Locked On Tar Heels family. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Don't be crazy out there with your Black Friday shopping. We'll talk again tomorrow after the NC State game. But until then, peace.